Hello, welcome to the session of Talking Tech, Women and Girls in ICT. My name is Anastasia Bektimirova, and today I'm delighted to be representing Equals, the global partnership for gender equality in the digital age. I'm excited to be having a discussion about tech and tech careers with Anne Vandenbroucke, Chief Regulatory Officer at Avanti Communications Group. More specifically, Anne works with satellite technologies and manages complex market access programs for telecommunications networks and services worldwide. Talking Tech is a series celebrating girls and women in tech being recorded around the world between Girls in ICT Day 2020 and Girls in ICT Day 2021. Girls in ICT Day is an international day marked on the fourth Thursday of each April. In 2020, Girls in ICT Day was on the 23rd April. The objectives of Girls in ICT Day are to help to create a global environment that empowers and encourages girls and young women to consider studies and careers in the growing field of information and communication technologies. The Talking Tech series is brought to you by the ITU, UNICC, and is in support of Equals, the global partnership for gender equality in the digital age. The goals of the series include to interest and inspire girls and young women with information about a range of ICT careers that can be had, and also to bring before a broader audience some of the role models in tech and share information about their career journeys and work. We also offer diverse examples of how ICT is being used to support achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals and other United Nations goals. And we're going to showcase initiatives that are working with girls to support them in ICT studies on future ICT careers. And we are going to provide girls with a leadership opportunity to represent and promote a Girls in Tech organization with which they are involved and promoted to a broader international audience. And to kick off this session, I'm going to introduce you to Equals, which is a global partnership which is aimed to build the technological capacities and digital skills of women and girls promoting ICT access, with special attention to populations living in rural areas. And it encourages girls and women to follow science, technology, engineering, and mathematics studies and careers. They run their own ICT businesses or follow a successful career in the industry. Empowering women and girls through ICTs will open up new opportunities for them to be fully engaged as engineers, developers, and content producers, thus transforming their lives and ensuring that they are active participants and full beneficiaries of the digital economy of today. At the moment, I'm serving as a communications intern at Equals, following my graduation from the Masters of Science degree in Media and Communications from the London School of Economics and Political Science. For more information about Equals, you can visit equals.org. A more gender-balanced tech sector is something that I have been working towards in my current role, and I'm delighted to now shift to a conversation with Anne, who is a Chief Regulatory Officer at Avanti Communications Group. So Anne, I have a few questions for you. So the first thing that interests me is your professional journey, which displays a long-standing commitment to technology. So what has led you to a career in technology in the first place and drawn you to satellites more specifically?
Thank you, Anastasia. I'm absolutely delighted to talk about that. The big secret is that actually I did not study STEM, although a lot of people think I'm an engineer. I am not. I studied law, and not even any kind of useful kind of law that could help people in front of a court. I studied administrative and constitutional law. So why it's not a very useful kind of law in ordinary life situations, it's actually something that puts me in very, very good stead to work at the cusp of where technology, industry, and government meet. I was always interested in policy development, and working in a technology sector is just perfect because technology has the potential to unleash a lot of benefits in society. It's a catalyst, but it needs to be harnessed in the right way so that it's introduced in a way that it's acceptable in a cultural and societal context, that the bugs are out of the technology, that it's mature enough, and then it needs to be some of its excesses or unintended consequences, like around privacy. When I finished study back in the 80s, you couldn't really study STEM because computers were hardly around. And the first thing I did in my first job, the very, very first thing they asked me to do, I will never forget that day. I walked in and they said, can you please make a royal decree to introduce frequencies for GSM into national law of this country? Mm-hmm. And I felt I had arrived, because then the first mobile phone hadn't been made, the first pylon for a network hadn't been built, the first operator didn't even exist. And I was there at the forefront of enabling something that was going to be so transformational. And I immediately knew that that was my path. So how did that path then actually lead to satellites? Well, as you can imagine, regulating technology knows no boundaries, and so I was part of some international working groups, kind of comparing with peers how other countries thought about it, what worked, what had not worked, and then the European Communication Office in Copenhagen offered a job to work to give a permanent structure to this international brainstorming and center of expertise. And there I met for the first time satellite operators. And of course, first of all, most of them in the satellite world are actually quite nice people. But for somebody who always wanted to look over the horizon, suddenly see a prospect of being able to be part of space and this amazing technology, that really spoke to the imagination. Mm-hmm. But what really, really made the difference, and what really made that I never left the sector, I did many, many different things, but mostly in the satellite sector, that is because it pulled a heartstring. And you hear that from many people. It's not just a job you're passionate about, it's an industry I'm passionate about, because satellite, I believe, is the cornerstone to bring immediately internet communication to anybody, everywhere, in any circumstances, without barriers. It goes where nothing else ever has been before or will ever go in the near future. And that's what has kept me going.
That's very interesting. Thank you for sharing your story. I have read that you're leading an all-female team. Is this correct?
Yeah, I actually did that. And it's a good observation, but I didn't consciously recruit or had a bias towards recruiting women. At that point, I was given, I took on a project which was like mission impossible. So I needed a tiger team. I needed a team of people who were going to go the extra mile, who were capable, for whom nothing was too much of a stretch, who could think out of the box, who could work as a team but could work as individuals, who had different skills but then could still work together as a team. So I needed a team of tigers, and the ones I recruited were the best I could find. Just happened to be all lionesses. There's something wrong with the biology there. I think I just don't know the female of tigress. So my tigers were lionesses, and that was a really good experience. And I think you kind of see that when there is something unprecedented like the times we live in now. You see the articles that say, actually, when in unprecedented times, when the going gets tough and the tough need to get going, women actually stand out there. So I always thought it was random that there were women, but perhaps women are quite suited to that kind of environment.
That's very interesting. And has this experience given you any insights into how technology companies, which I believe to be a male turf, could be made more inclusive of women?
Well, I think it works both sides. I actually think women have it in there to function very well in that environment. Or this encouragement of women to choose a STEM career is really an important element, that because education and background are a very important element. But I want to say from personal experience that it's not only education, because although you can acquire knowledge on the job, but it's very much also about an attitude of girls just having the self-confidence and allowing themselves, if they have the dream, to follow that dream. And also in STEM these days and in ICT, there is such a wide variety of jobs. If you, like me, work in regulatory, don't say I work in regulatory, I work in ICT. So it broadens the scope of counting women in ICT jobs.
Yes, I completely agree with you. So during your career, you have spent over 20 years managing complex market access programs for telecommunications networks and services worldwide. What are some of the major obstacles to universal satellite connectivity today, and where should future professionals direct their efforts to eliminate those?
Well, the first thing I wanted to say is that satellite is probably a little bit of a hidden technology, and that it's probably more prevailing than people know. So if we imagine the unimaginable, a day without satellite, a day where all transmissions would stop, how would that impact on the planet and us and the economy? Well, things that spring to mind are like airlines. The pilots would struggle to communicate, or they would not be able at all to communicate with ground control. Ships, which carry most of our energy supply and about 60% of our food supply around the oceans, would be isolated in the most remote areas. GPS position reporting would stop. Emergency services would not be able to locate where they need to be. Delivery services, neither. There are more unknown things that are delivered to space. The calibration of time across the world and the accurate time reporting, time stamping is done exclusively via satellite. So all the networks that depend on computers would actually get out of sync, and it would wreak havoc among the financial transactions. Weather forecasts would not be accurate. There would not be observation of illegal logging. So there's such a wide range of things that would be affected, which we don't normally use. So satellite is actually more prevailing in daily life than we know. But I hear your question. Your question is, talking in the UN context of sustainable development goals, how can satellite do more to deliver there? Well, I would say it needs more satellites. And the good news is that a lot of existing satellite companies are expanding, they are growing. And even there are some very exciting new players entering this space, like, for example, Amazon. Like, for example, Elon Musk, he's not only investing in green cars, he's also investing in green telecoms through satellites. So more coming, and with the evolving technology driving prices down, it's clear that we'll see even more of connectivity of schools in remote areas. For example, my company's flagship program is called I'm Lango, and it connects hundreds of schools in a very remote area of Kenya. Has been going since 5 years, and actually has made a major impact in girls who are perhaps prone to drop earlier out of school to finish primary education, which is huge as a stepping stone towards STEM. But again, there, if you would ask those girls, do you know about satellites? They would say, no, we are in front of a computer in just the same way as any other child would be. And this is how it has to be. Satellites should not be seen as something of last resort, which you use when there's absolutely nothing else you could use, and it's all more clunky, and it's only second best for when nothing else. It should be a great leveler, and it is that. So you connect your laptop via Wi-Fi to the satellite terminal, and a lot of people never realize that they actually have connectivity via satellite. And same with your mobile phone. To the user, it's like you, like everybody else, you use a mobile phone. I want to thank you for the opportunity for promoting and making this hidden technology a little bit more visible.
Yes, I can see that we need to raise more awareness about the role of satellites. Thank you for your insightful story. But I would like to ask a more personal question. So, what is your biggest professional failure to date? And what is your biggest professional achievement?
Well, I think I've decided on the spot to share something personal, which I actually haven't done before. About 10 years ago, I was flying. I thought I was at the height of my career. Things were so going for me, top job, good results. And then, out of the blue, from one day to the other, my VP replaced me. So of course, I couldn't understand it, because there were no issues. Things were going well. The results I thought could speak for themselves. I wasn't given a lot of explanation, and of course it was a drama, because I had moved countries. I have invested so much. I was working 24/7. I had a dedicated team. My work permit was going to expire, and I had to. It was a drama, but of course, we couldn't let this drama evolve into a crisis. So there was another project which needed a leader that week, much more modest. So I put up my hand, I moved country, I moved on. But about a year after, when there had been water under the bridge, I met that VP again. And I chose my words carefully. I didn't ask him what I really wanted to ask. Why did you do that? Why did you do that to me? I asked him, why did that happen to me? And to his credit, he was brutally honest. He said two things. He said, first of all, you never came to find me. And the second thing he said was, I needed somebody bigger. Now, I'm going to give away a lot of my secrets here. Well, this is, if you could see me, it's difficult for me to be big. If you measure me, I make 1.55 meters at stretch, standing on my toes. So I was never going to be a big person. But what he meant is, he wanted somebody to throw the weight around, somebody to be bolshy and I looked him in the eye at that moment and I said, you wanted a man. And he bashed his eyes. He replaced me because he wanted somebody with male attributes. And I learned from that. I learned a lot from that. I needed to do introspection, because I never wanted this to happen again. And I share this because actually this is something, this is something that happened to me because of I was displaying very typical female female attributes. I was going about my work in a very unassuming way. I thought this man has so many problems on his plate that I'm just not gonna bother him with my problems. I'm gonna figure out how to solve them. And I must admit that deep down, and he had to replace me because I would, if he had told me, if you have issues, come and see me, I would never have been able to do that because I would have believed that he would think I wasn't up to the job, that I was a fake, that I was just pretending to be able to be in charge. Big mistake. My grandfather told me age 3 when he dropped me off at school, don't try to be the perfect girl. What he said is, if you show your perfect imperfections, that's when you're at your best. Go and find people, manage your relationships 360 degrees around your team, your peers, but also your superiors. It's very important to do that. Every action needs communication. And don't believe that facts speak for themselves. They don't. You need to give facts a voice, because if you make it look too easy, then you look like a gymnast who scores the perfect 10 and you make it look easy, and people look at that and say, that was beautifully done. You know, if I had some of those bars in my back garden, I have a couple of swings around it and I'll do the same. Well, actually it takes years of practice. It takes the right context, the right approach, so much skill, overcoming so many difficulties. And if you don't let people know you, if you don't create relationships, if you're not confident enough to be perfectly imperfect, these things would happen. So I thought I would say that to all girls, you know, don't think like I did. Oh my God, small girl from a small country, from a small city. Oh my God, if I don't want to be found out like a fake. No, it's not because you need help that it's not that you're not a professional. And people like to give help because it actually is a good segue in what makes me most proud. I'm in my 50s now, and when I look back, I've led so many teams and so many working groups that I feel like the grandmother of regulatory people around the globe in some instances. And what makes me most proud is that that is like a continuation to people who have been in my teams, and I have attracted the best, but not the best in a polished form. I really tried to actually find people who had it in them, but who needed a little bit of help to break out of the cocoon and to develop into a beautiful butterfly. And my approach to leadership and has always been, I don't want you to follow my example. I don't want you to show it how it's done. I want to work together like a midwife with a woman, and actually help you to be born, help you to discover in yourself how you can do the things that need to be done in a way that suits your ethics, your culture, your way of thinking, because people are so divergent that there is not one single way. I always enjoy that. I always find it very humble to work with somebody who comes and thinks, I know nothing to nothing. I'm just a a poor boy from a background that never thought it could lead to leadership or a great career or great achievements, and then see that man or that woman a few years later walk out of the room head high, full of confidence, and say, yes, I have a foundation, and not everything is going to be according to plan, but I know that I can do that just as well as the other good people who are doing this. And having people come up to me and say, and I learned from you, you gave me self-confidence. That is totally my biggest achievement.
Thank you for sharing this.
It's not easy.
Yes, it's a very personal thing to share. So thank you so much. I think that one of the principal features of a good leader is to see potential in someone who doesn't necessarily displays certain attributes, but to see that potential, to see that talent, and to help the person grow and develop professionally and personally. And I feel that your story is a perfect example, and what you said is just very important for every young aspiring professional out there. And just you said, don't be afraid to ask questions and to admit that you don't know something, because that's important.
And the more authentic you can be, the easier it is for everybody.
Yeah, thank you. It's very inspiring. So turning more to the current state of affairs, what do you personally or your company do in order to inspire and cultivate next generation of professionals in your field? You can touch up on some educational programs that your company is involved in, or maybe some public speaking events. So how do you spread the word about what you are doing to draw new talent?
It's a good question. I would like to say Avanti is a company with a heart. I spoke about the Armlango project. We have an medicine project in Sub-Saharan Africa too, where we connect a specialist in a hospital in the capital with healthcare workers who are not specialists in really remote areas with not a lot of capabilities. And all we see it now too. The coronavirus has brought this capability a bit more worldwide. This remote diagnostics, remote learning over the internet. It works well. Avanti also gives back to the community. It supports some charities. Avanti is also operational in refugee camps. Very important. And then when it comes to training and outreach, there's an apprenticeship program which is very popular. And again, we then can, as a company, be very proud of having trained our own next generation engineers and satellite specialists, and export some to other companies in the business too. We also participate in capacity building, because very often when regulators have to deal with satellite, they kind of think it's this space cannon and they don't know how to control it. And we demystify the technology and raise awareness for it. We do those kind of awareness workshops and training. We participate, people from my team and the company give their time and expertise for free to the ITU, to the UN, to African Telecommunication Union, to Commonwealth Telecommunication Union. So this is very worthwhile doing. And then, of course, we take with both hands opportunities like you're offering us now.
Well, thank you for this insightful conversation. And my last question to you is, since our series is dedicated to girls and women in technology, what advice would you give to girls specifically who inspire to enter the technology sector professionally, or perhaps who are at the earliest stages in their careers?
I mentioned already a few. Don't hesitate to create a mentoring relationship, communicate well, believe in yourself. There's just one I would like to ask. In that previous example, where one of the reasons why I never went to find my VP was also because I found it difficult to like blow the own trumpet, like to tell him, look, this is what I did well. It was like fishing for compliments, and you're getting all my secrets out of me. When somebody gives a compliment, I still at this age blush terribly, and then I start stuttering, and it's a big mess. And I actually think young people and girls more than boys need to learn and just take the compliment, celebrate yourself, and ask and be happy with recognition. That would be perhaps strange, but definitely an advice. Now, since that event, I would always be mindful to celebrate things and to bashfully accept praise. I wonder if I could ask you some questions.
Yes, of course.
When I was your age, I definitely was not as bright and shiny and daring as you are. I saw in your profile that you also don't have the kind of traditional STEM profile.
Mm-hmm.
I see on there skill sets like Adobe and Photoshop and creativity and political communication. So I wonder if is there an evolution in what puts people in good stead? What are the right skills or useful skills for a career in ICT? What's your view on that?
Well, first and foremost, I personally believe that a cross-disciplinary approach is the way forward, and it brings results like no other, regardless of the field. And specifically in STEM fields, we need more social scientists these days, and university degree programs that stand at the intersection of science, technology, and society. They enable students to connect these matters together and to critically look at their interrelated nature and to address larger human concerns. And so that's why having an interdisciplinary background is so valuable, especially in technology field. And as technology infiltrates the many aspects of our daily lives, and technology companies start to think more like a community, they start to think about identities, about things like political polarization, fake news. And so social scientists are exposed to the most recent research coming out about these topics, and therefore their contributions to the work in the technology field is so valuable. And also giving the role of technology companies that they're playing today in politics, for example. We need social scientists more than ever before. And the same goes about the process of data analysis. Social scientists, they know what questions to ask, and they also know how to analyze and process information and how to make sense of that data. I just feel that it requires that cross-disciplinary approach, and therefore the more diverse background is, the better.
Yeah, and there's so many similarities to why I actually went into it is and believe that a wide range of skills suit the field. So yes, and but you probably said it far more eloquently than I did. So great meeting of mine there. Totally see it the same way. Your profile also shows mean, an amazing academic background. Congratulations with that. It's an achievement in itself already. I just would like to have your view on a question you asked me. It's these days of Corona, we see that we are forced to use technology and robotics and ICT for a variety of solutions. On the one hand, it holds this increased belief in the use of technology for education, for example. Then you could conclude that, but it's obvious this is the solution to close the digital divide, because now we can actually, it's proven that we can have education without the school's infrastructure and then the buildings of the school. So it makes it so that it brings digital inclusion closer. But then on the other hand, we see that it's the people who are in the well-connected world, who have a telephone and an iPhone, who benefit or who are able to continue their life more easily, while people that there are other people whose inclusion comes actually to going to school, because they get a meal there, so the school is an education is an answer to a more complex sets of issues than just education. What do you think about whether the technology actually enlarges or closes the digital divide?
Well, the more connected we are, the more narrow the digital divide is. But you spoke a bit about the way many people rely on schools, talking specifically on the current context. For example, some schools in New York, they have managed to provide the school children with devices that are needed in order to facilitate the arrangements of remote learning. So yes, everyone has access to a device, but some of those children, they might be living in homeless shelters with no internet connection. And so while they do have devices, they still don't have stable access to the internet. So essentially they cannot access any of the learning materials, so they have to go outside and sit in areas with public Wi-Fi in order to access the educational materials. And this is a problem. Well, I guess it is the same way that we need to apply the same principles of equity-minded teaching. The same we apply in the face-to-face environment, and the same should be applied in the virtual learning environment. We just need to be aware of the various needs of students and their different capacity to manage remote learning, and we need to be aware of the way that the different ways in which the current situation may be impacting different communities. So I guess most important for this is to have a conversation and not to take things for granted. So those who are responsible in providing and arranging these remote educational facilities, they really need to talk to students, because they know the best about what they would need, and to go from there to find solutions to specific problems, because there is no universal solution, because everyone's story is different and everyone's facilities differ.
I think there's a theme emerging here, which is multidisciplinary. It needs social scientists and it needs the people on the ground to kind of formulate the ask, and then tech can see what it needs to come with tech, and it needs to come together with politicians and find a solution. What was most humbling for me when I saw your CV was to see that and such a young person you have on there: London, New York, Moscow, and prestigious organizations like the UN. So you, in my eyes, you are already a true internationalist. So what is in your view or your experience even, the importance of international experience, about international collaboration on ICT, and is this inclusive, or is there anything that could be done to make it inclusive for not only for women but for groups who may not normally find that career path?
I have spent many years working and studying in a multicultural environment, and I guess it was then when I have properly realized how the exchange of views among people coming from different backgrounds and diverse outlooks of life, how important that is. And turning specifically to the technology sector, as I said earlier, technologies are now infiltrating into so many different areas of our lives, and essentially technologies and those who design them are becoming the designers of our new reality, new virtual reality that we are increasingly inhabiting. And so if people who create that new virtual environment, if they're all coming from the same educational background, the same cultural background, this will inevitably lead to the biases, as we have seen already, that inevitably live in those technologies that we're using every day. And I guess this only reiterates the need for inclusiveness and for bringing people from diverse roads of life together in the technology sector.
Yes, there's something in something I heard Neelie Kroes once say. It's like, for my generation of women, we used to be told that diamonds are a girl's best friend, but actually no, ICT skills in a multidisciplinary way are the best skills. And as she said, once you have those, the diamonds will follow.
That is a good point to finish our conversation today. So again, I would like to thank you for participating in this interview, and I really enjoyed our talk today, and thank you for your inspiring remarks. And I'm sure that you have inspired many girls who are watching this to be brave, to not to be afraid of pursuing their goals and dreams, not to be afraid to ask questions and to admit that they might not know everything, and most importantly, to be brave to grow and learn in whatever field that they choose. Thank you so much.
If I can add one last word, is to everybody, if you want to, come and find me.